welcome to This Week in Games 288, where we read and distill all the weekly game industry news so you don't have to. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Apple's in trouble. They're getting a little hand slap from the European DMA. Lots of executive departures at various companies, so we're going to do some speculation and some gossip because that's what we do. A lot of updates on live games. Phil's going to go through a bunch of games just quickly so that we can get the state of where things are. And Laura's going to do a deeper dive into Nintendo Direct. She actually watched the Japanese version, which we didn't know was actually different. And so that was really interesting. So hi, everyone. I'm Jen Donahoe, Strategic Marketing Consultant at Beta Hat and Jade Inferno. And today we have on our panel Philip Black, Game Economist at Game Economist Consulting.
Hey, hey.
Eric Kress, Birthday Boy, Principal at Gossamer Consulting Group.
Yo.
And Laura Taranto, Senior Director of Product at Big Fish.
Hey, hey.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. You know, birthdays have little or no meaning after a certain age, and 53 is probably the most meaningless of them all. But I'm feeling retirement age coming. Isn't it 55, people? You know, two more years. That's all I got. No?
You got a ways to go, Cress. It's like 67.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's in Spain and France, where you work 20 hours a week and then retire at 53.
You can work on your leather body, though. You know, you just go to the beach all day in a Speedo.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to go off the pasture and leave this work world behind. Leave you poor schmucks in the gaming industry to meander without me. No, I'm kidding. I got a few more years in me. Kids got to get out of high school at least, and then I can start thinking retirement.
This would have made it if you had your reading glasses on. That would have helped the segment.
And you were sitting in. There you go.
There we go.
You don't even need to make an announcement at this point.
Oh, 53.
Happy birthday, and we will make sure that this is a killer podcast for you and give you plenty to hulk out about. Phil had a great analogy. We were talking about our sound levels, and somebody had made a comment that the host's sound goes in and out as they move in and out of the microphone. And I was like, that's not the host. That's called Cress. And Phil's like, oh, that's when he hulks out and starts getting really animated. I thought that was awesome. Good job, Phil.
When do you get to the discounts at movie theaters? Is that 55? What do you have to flash? This is a new world you're entering.
AARP.
Yeah, AARP has already contacted me. I'm already registered.
I'm jealous.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
All right, let's get into some shilling. So it's not exactly a Deconstructor of Fun supper club, but a Deconstructor of Fun happy hour. So there's a happy hour event in LA from Planet Play, a new game industry event from Stash. The event is at the new 100 Thieves headquarters in LA, which is its own reason to attend just to see this place. I've heard it's fantastic. It's Wednesday, July 17th at 5 p.m. So the link to register to attend is actually in the Deconstructor of Fun Slack. It's in the events channel if you want to go check it out. They have almost 100 people already signed up. After this, hopefully it'll be much bigger. I'm coming. Obviously, I'm based in LA, so come join. Cress, Laura, you want to come down?
I just booked my flight. I am coming because Archie is part of Stash, and he's a friend of the podcast and a friend of mine. So I will be down there to hang out in LA for the day.
All right. Well, two live crew. That's a good one. Laura, any chance? So you're too busy in Seattle, right?
Let's see. Maybe I'll do a last minute YOLO moment. And the day before on the 16th, maybe I'll book a flight.
Surprise appearance. So Phil, you going to fly over from Sweden? You want to come join just for,
I remember when they unveiled this HQ and they called it a compound. And I've never heard of any good site location that's called a compound. So I'm going to pass. This is the best esport money can buy, right? I think that's what they do. I can never figure out what they actually do. 100 Thieves.
Lifestyle brand.
Lifestyle brand. Okay.
Lifestyle brand. All right. So other shilling, Lexi from Sensor Tower was on the podcast. It's actually a really good podcast. So they went over a couple of reports from both Data AI and Sensor Tower. You might remember that they merged. And so Lexi now works at Sensor Tower. So she used to work at Data AI. So app versus game dynamics, ad spending on TikTok and YouTube. This was really interesting to me. YouTube is still by far number one. TikTok has surpassed Instagram and Facebook when you split them out separately. So that was huge news in terms of ad spend in gaming, regional differences, IP collaborations, the future of subscription gaming. So the article is out on the newsletter. The podcast is live, so check that out. We, in quote, will be at Gamescom, linked to the events coming during July or in our newsletter in Slack. Legendary whiskey tasting, soon to be legendary supper club, and game night. I think this is a Miska and Phil event because the US team is likely grounded because that's way far away. Unless anyone wants to sponsor us, I will show up, but super expensive when you're a consultant to fly out to Gamescom and time. But anyway, that's Gamescom. All right. Couple corrections, or a correction on Netflix. I guess this isn't really a correction, but an update. I hope I don't get in trouble for reading this. Credible sources reached out telling us that the company has invested close to $3 billion thus far into games, not the $1 billion which was stated in the last episode. 3x bigger. Phil?
Not the things you want to hear. This certainly doesn't make the story better. I would say the piece of context that's important here is that they're set to spend $17 billion on content this year. So this is $3 billion over like the life cycle of games. When did they start the games division? Okay, that's not that much money. Yeah, so that's not a ton of money. I think the point Michigan makes in his piece that he published on DOF, which I think was pretty apt, is like they have real opportunity costs now. Like they really need to grow their subscriber base. They know that's what they need to do. They've been working on ads. So capital's flowing in a lot of different ways to find investments. They're doing physical stuff. I don't know if you just saw there was a theater that they announced. They're getting into merchandise like popcorn. Now, I'm sure these are all brand stunts, but like they know they need to grow. They want to get that tech multiple, not an entertainment multiple, despite the fact they've said it's an entertainment company. Like games are a good idea for this company. I really do think that. They just are using an improper business model. So I don't know, $3 billion, that doesn't sound like a bad roll of the die. I just think it needs a $3 billion with a strategy. Like you want return on that investment, and just there hasn't been any.
Yeah, likely $1 billion a year, which is a lot, but when you're setting up a new division. Also, they just announced that they're doing like, I don't want to call it a theme park, but mini experiential experiences. So they're renting out vacant malls and setting up like a Stranger Things walkthrough or a Bridgerton experience. They've actually had a bunch of these in LA. I haven't gone to any yet, but
we were walking through the mall and we saw the Fallout one. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. It was nuts. Like some pop-up like Fallout experience for the series. Isn't the Fallout series kind of done?
What does a ghoul eat you? Like what?
No. I think that you could actually get dressed up as a ghoul. Like you could actually, something like that. I don't know.
These are on trend. These are new. And Scott Galloway from the Prof G podcast and Pivot talks a lot about how he thinks this is brilliant because Disney is entrenched in theme parks and it's $5 to $10K to actually go with your family. It takes a week. It's very difficult to go to an actual theme park. Why not have a place where you can take your friends and your kids for $50, $100 and have a few hour experience and build the brand, right? These are brand building experiences. So I agree. I think this is pretty awesome. All right. So quick hits. Let's talk about Apple getting its hand slapped. Apple hit by first charges under the new European tech law, which is called the DMA. This actually hit the Wall Street Journal and a bunch of other high-level publications. EU Commission said that it found Apple's rules of engagement did not comply with the DMA because it prevents app developers from freely steering consumers to alternative channels for offers and content. So this includes the Apple Core Technology fee, which is 50 cents for every app install per year after the initial install distributed via the App Store via alternative marketplaces. So that is not okay. As we all thought when we heard this, Apple could be fined as much as 10% of its worldwide revenue if the EU regulators, in 3 key points, the Commission found that Apple's business terms don't allow developers to freely steer customers, i.e. developers can't provide pricing information within the app or communicate other places to purchase. Secondly, while Apple does now allow developers to include links, this link out process is subject to restrictions imposed by Apple that prevent app developers from communicating, promoting offers, and concluding contracts through the distribution channel of their choice. Thirdly, Apple's fees go beyond what is strictly necessary. Apple currently charges developers a fee for every purchase of digital goods or services a user makes within 7 days after a link out from the app. Woof! Cress, thoughts?
This wasn't a hand slap. This was a bitch slap, like backhand, like kiss my ass Apple from the DMA. Seriously, dude. I mean, they're just getting a beat down from the DMA. And they're, again, because as we said in the podcast, this was an attempt to comply with the letter of the law, but not even close to the spirit of the law when the DMA put it in place. So in essence, like their response to the DMA's pimp slap should be Epic can create a more viable store than other third parties and also make it far more streamlined and more efficient for the consumer, which is like the most important thing, right? So, this 16-step process of side loading a store, that should be much, much, much more streamlined for the consumer to try alternative stores. So this is the path on the right direction. And we'll see what Apple's response is before they get charged 10% of worldwide revenue, which is a big, huge chunk of money that they cannot tolerate. So, yeah, we'll see.
These used to be parking tickets before where, if you're Facebook or your Apple and, the European regions are like, hey, here's a fine. It was like a parking ticket and you just move on and you collect them. 10% of your revenue on a worldwide basis is no longer a parking ticket. So it'll be cool to see what happens. Let's see what they do.
Where's the United States government involved in this? 10% of worldwide revenue? Are you kidding me? Like, why are these European companies milking us? This is insanity that we're not stepping in. It's because tech is viewed so poorly right now. The Justice Department's on an ideological tear. I don't think there's any sympathy in the White House. We're getting 10% of worldwide revenue. So US revenue is going to go to Europe, the EU. This is a shakedown by European governments. We have interests in the United States and we should be protecting that. As a Swedish person, my interests are different. There is conflict. But that being said, like there should be someone stepping in. Europe, by the way, is only, I think, 20 to 30% of Apple's revenue. And you saw they had the Apple Intelligence features are going to be delayed in Europe because these regulatory requirements are not clear, which is something that was true. A lot of these are really vague. There's a gatekeeper requirement that they've added as well to the DMA. And so, this is the cost of regulation, is that it takes a long time to figure out what exactly was said and how the courts are going to interpret it. But 10% of worldwide revenue is wild to me. That's all I'll say. I know everyone's cheering this on, but like
I'm going to throw the political flag on this and have us move on.
I was going to make a joke that the U.S. government's too distracted by TikTok and Ticketmaster.
Oh, here we go. All right, moving on.
Just
All
kidding.
right, yeah,
Moving on.
yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry, everybody. Phil's views are his own. So I had to pull this out because I often talk about collaborations and how cool they are and things that I'm excited about. This one made no sense to me. So this is in GameIndustry.biz. FIFA has formed a partnership with Rocket League for its Esports World Cup. FIFA announced the 16-country participation during Rocket League Championship Series on Sunday. 3 players and 1 substitute will represent each country. The countries will be selected based on the number of players involved in the previous Rocket League major events. Granted, I haven't played Rocket League in a long time, but last time I checked, it wasn't football. I know there are cars that like zoom around and try to knock a ball into a net, but is Holland
football.
there? It's not football. It's fucking cars. It's cars.
Look at the screenshot. Like, what do you think that is?
What do you like? Is that soccer? Is that football? Like, where's
It's totally
Holland?
soccer.
Where's my girls playing? Like, where's my U.S. national team?
FIFA's so desperate to get any type of interactive experience since they blew it with EA, right? They're gonna try to find anything to get interactive as part of it to save face from being idiots about the negotiation around FIFA.
I think this makes them look more like idiots.
Well,
Now they look desperate.
Yeah, they are desperate, right? They are, because they gave up hundreds of millions of dollars in licensing revenue, pure profit, for what? For nothing, because they can't figure this shit out. So yeah, let's sign up Rocket League and spend even more money, right? Yeah,
Oh, that makes
whatever.
sense. I think I read back in the day when we talked about this that EA was their number one licensee. That was the number one source of revenue for
Yeah.
them that just disappeared because they couldn't get that deal done.
Yeah, 100%. They got greedy as F. And
EA FC 24, I think is at the top of the charts this month. I saw in Europe, and so it's still killing it.
yeah, we said earlier, they didn't skip a beat for EA. They really surprisingly did a good job of managing customers over to the new experience, because FIFA doesn't matter, and it's going to become less and less relevant, as time goes on, because it's not part of the zeitgeist around soccer going forward. Like, they did themselves a disservice by eliminating that license.
Agree. All right, Laura, let's go to you.
All right, tagging in for Miska for investments in M&A. We have a little bit of mobile news. Triple Dot Studios acquired Czech-based mobile casual and hyper-casual games developer Zephyr Mobile. Triple Dot, I'm sure people here have played it, is well known for Woodoku. They also have a blackjack title, a triple tile. They have a bunch of games. Their monetization model is a mix of IP and ads. So this investment is to work with Zephyr Mobile to see how they can take their learnings and help that studio grow. And then we have KID raises a gravity-defying $45 million Series A from Lightspeed, Andreessen Horowitz, Convoy, and others to build safe gaming and internet experiences for kids, teens, and their parents.
Moritz has got to lay off the sauce when he writes these goddamn PR things, right? So he says, signing this term sheet and joining the company's board of directors as a new dad made this investment even more meaningful. I mean, come on, dude.
That's cute, though.
There's a double entendre there. He's actually become a new dad, and he's now a new dad of a kid thing. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like throwing up. I was throwing up in my mouth, right? It's like so cringy, dude. And I say some cringy shit. Now, don't get me wrong. I know what it's like, but I mean, this takes it to a whole nother level, Mr. Moritz. But what I will say, finally, for Moritz, is that this investment makes sense, right? This is potentially a scalable business, licensing business in the marketplace that makes sense for a venture capitalist versus these insane AAA investments that he's doing that they're paying like $1 million salaries, like, and burning through every like nickel of the money that they've raised, right? Which we can talk about at another time. But I want to do an FYI on this one because this was the one deal I was talking about when I was talking about A16Z a few months ago, right? Like this was the one that was rumored where they did the initial like round. This is part of the speed rounds or whatever the F they call it, right? So anyway, and so the idea is that this was the one that A16Z was trying to take the entire round, right? Like, and bully the company into like letting them take the entire round, which they're well known for, not even in gaming, but overall, like that's kind of what they do because they're the big gorilla. So it's really good that they did get dollars from a really solid group of investors, including Convoy, Lightspeed, as well as like strategic, so Okta. And I think this is great news for the company. And it's not necessarily good news for A16Z or Speedrun in general, right? Because to reiterate, they have a $600 million fund. So getting a partial investment in this raise does not give them the kind of equity they need in order to generate returns on such a big fund. Like this is a critical part of this thing. So yes, if they had taken the entire round of 45 million, that's a material number for a $600 million fund. Now, I have no idea what the structure of this deal is, right? I do not know exactly who got what. But in order to make a big enough investment to make a material impact on a $600 million fund, much less the $7 billion fund that A16Z raised recently, like, yeah, this is not it, right? This doesn't do it. And again, I'm in absolute speculation mode. I have no idea what the economics of this deal were. I'm just basically speculating on that. But anyway, this just to follow up to what I was trying to say a few months ago about A16Z and their fund.
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know all the things that you just talked about the money side, but I do know a little bit about kids compliance, having worked on kids games for many years. It is like, it's so hard. And I actually have literal kids experience, as do you. So I want to talk to you about this, Chris. So I applaud the idea of a compliance platform. We know that what's going on in gaming, what's going on in social is really challenging for kids. As a parent, this was really difficult to police, make sure the kids are safe. How do they not do naughty stuff? But this shit is painful for developers and parents. So I looked at the website. I didn't see a demo or get to dig in more. I actually reached out to Moritz. I'm like, can I see a demo of this? Because forgive me, I haven't seen what this is. So I'm going to talk a little out of turn here and just talk from experience as a parent or as a step monster. I'm not sure this can work because kids are sneaky little shits. Yes, all kids. I don't care if you have the best kid on the planet, they are sneaky little shits. Let me tell you the story about how our kids circumvented all of these systems at 7 years old. Zach, little shit, at 7, he's 18 now. He just graduated high school. And this was back then. This is back when he was 7 and his sister was 5. So they figured out how to go to Google, create new Gmail accounts. They would use each other as verification for their Gmail accounts. They would set up new Apple IDs, and they would go on their phones to get to all of the things that they were not allowed to do. We only found out because Zach is the worst liar on the planet, and he forgot his password, and he was like, hey, Mr. Meow, that's my nickname. It's a long story, but it's pretty funny. Meow, can you reset the password to my account? And so we did, and he's like, oh, it didn't work, do it again. And then he was like, he could see he got bright red, and he was like, oh shit, like it's my fake email. And so that's how we caught him when he was 7. I was both proud and terrified as a parent that this is how they figured this out. But anyway, to summarize, I'm not sure how any platform can work because I'm gonna equate kids and criminals. They will always figure out how to get around this stuff. Chris, have you had a similar experience, or do I just have delinquent children who are smart and shits?
Again, this is the story of Roblox, right? Their complete misinformation about, their aging up is that a lot of people are just circumventing their almost lack of age verification system. On a personal level, I actually do think that having these type of systems, some kind of system that's somewhat foolproof, is probably important. And I think, my experience with my kids is that I wish I had been a little bit more in control than I was. So to the extent that they can actually find a way of beating these children, then maybe might
not
work.
Beat the children.
I mean, literally and figuratively, frankly. But
the whole market's Roblox. So there's no market for this. It's Roblox and Brawl Stars for this age group. Okay, so you got Minecraft, but all of those are huge corporations that want to build their internal solutions. Why would they want to buy a third party for this?
I didn't want to go there, Phil. I didn't want to go there because I don't really know enough about this company, but I agree with you. I don't know what the TAM is here, honestly. I just don't.
It's huge. But TikTok's moving into games, Discord's moving into games, YouTube's moving into games.
It's a non-invented here thing. It's like these systems, like Epic, all these guys are going to build their own tech. They're not going to rely upon a third party.
I don't know either.
So difficult and so specialized to build your own. I mean, if you're a big company, maybe you can dedicate the 150 people to be able to do that with legal, but it's a fucking nightmare, and it changes all the time. The rules change all the time. There's actually legislation in the US right now to try to put forth child online protection, and there's a lot of lobbyists going against it because we don't know what it's going to end up being.
Every country's going to have its own.
Yeah, which it does. And they point out in their documentation, I tried to look a little bit, and they have this document. They bomb you with how just awful this is and let us be the experts at, which I get. Again, I think this is a brilliant idea. My question, and which I will come back and report on once I get a chance to experience it, is how do they actually execute this?
Yeah. And isn't Miska doing a podcast with these guys? So maybe that'll shed some light into their...
It might be. We'll set something up because I do think the TAM is huge. Lexi actually talked about how kids' games are growing, what's going on. It's not even just games, it's other platforms as well. Like how social is just brutally just killing our kids with, making them depressed. And yes, there's, the studies are on both sides on is that actually happening or not. I think we can all agree that social is challenging for everybody. We'll dig in more. Sorry, KID, if we went too heavy on you without full knowledge, but we're not journalists, so that's what we do.
I think they want distribution based on those screenshots. I think they want distribution. I think they want to get a lot of kids on their platform, and then mom and dad gets to choose from the tool which games are installed on their kids' devices.
Anything that's on that thing, kids will be like, fuck that. I'm not playing anything that's on that service. These games suck, right? Kids are not idiots, right?
Yeah, it was more about do you turn chat on or off? It was like developers put something in like an SDK in their app, and then parents have the control of hey, I can turn off chat or some of these other things, which Xbox has and PlayStation has. I had to set that up on the Xbox for the kids because they were playing Minecraft and Fortnite on my Xbox, and I had to set up a different ID and all the things they could and couldn't do. And then that's a nightmare because then they can't do any multiplayer.
You've heard of heroic labs by now, and we keep talking about them because in today's mature market, you need every edge to be successful. Rather than spending those precious company dollars on building game tech, focus on building your game and shipping it. Get into your players' hands faster and grow your community. Heroic Labs is battle-tested partner and friend of the podcast. Their tech enables you to be flexible, creative, and scale for success. Heroic Labs has your tech stack covered. Whether you're looking for a world-class back-end game server, an amazing game development framework, fantastic live ops tooling, or reliable mass scalability, Heroic Labs has solutions for all of these challenges. And it's not just us at Deconstructor of Fun praising Heroic Labs. The company works with some of the world's biggest publishers on many of the beloved games. Focus on your game, save a big chunk of cheese, and avoid tech risks with Heroic Labs.
This podcast is brought to you by Sensor Tower. Sensor Tower has acquired mobile analytics company Data AI, formerly known as We All Know and Love App Annie. 4 things you should know. Significant advancement. Number 1. This acquisition represents a major step forward for Sensor Tower. It expands its customer base, mobile marketing, and app intelligence products, and global presence. Number 2, undisputed leadership position. Sensor Tower strengthened its position as the leader in digital marketing and mobile app intelligence through this acquisition. Number 3, combined insights. This merger with Data AI allows Sensor Tower to offer customers even stronger and more detailed insights on the digital customer journey. And last, consumer trends. With increasing time spent on digital channels, the combined company is well positioned to capitalize on the growing trend of in-app purchases driven by platforms like Google, Meta, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Snap. Exciting times lie ahead for Sensor Tower and Data AI as they join forces. If you're a customer, reach out to your account director for more information. Not a customer yet? No problem. Schedule a call to explore the innovative digital marketing products they offer. Go to Data AI or sensortower.com and get on board with undeniably the best data partner in the business. Let the speculation begin.
Dude, I love how, Miska just drops these bombs in there and then makes us read, right? Like we have any context to any of this. But anyway, supposedly the CMO of Supercell is out, Fernanda Romano, right? And according to my calculations, that's like a 6-month stint, right? It took longer for her to get hired than it did to her tenure there. I mean, it's pretty nuts. You know how long it takes to hire a senior person like that? So there must be some story out there. But sources are saying that it had nothing to do with Squad Busters, which I still find hard to believe. Likely has to do with something with her approach that just did not sit well with the rest of the org.
Next week, we have a piece coming. Squad Busters 1 month later.
Oh,
okay.
So buckle in.
It looks brutal.
There's a big story. Yeah.
You're going to eat crow. Is that what's happening?
Oh, it's going to be a feast.
yeah. Phil, I was looking at DAU across the Supercell portfolio. It looks like all DAU is down, right? Did we talk about that already? But so not only did this tank, but did it cannibalize and tank?
It's just not good.
Is it sucking the air out of the Supercell balloon? Because
no, it's just not good.
Okay, you throw out a game that has absolutely like mice nuts monetization when you're killing it with their other games. And what do you think is going to happen?
It's absolutely not the story. It has nothing to do with monetization, and we're going to look at that next week.
All right,
okay.
all right.
Can I also say on Supercell, they just announced Rise, which is a reboot of Clash Heroes. So I watched the video on this because I'm like, why would you announce this right now? That you're in a pre-alpha, come sign up to be a part of the pre-alpha for this reboot of Clash Heroes, which actually looks kind of fun. When I watched the little video, they do such a nice job on so many things. And then, sadly not on other things. But what do you think about this Clash Heroes reboot happening right now from an announcement perspective?
Next chapter, baby.
They're already
keep turning the page.
Moving on. All right.
keep turning.
You didn't like that. Anyway, okay. So do we want to speculate on any other reason? So they said it wasn't Squad Busters that caused the CMO to leave, that she may have been building an empire and building up too many hires, and that might have been the reason. Any other thoughts?
Eric Seifer has a piece about brand executives that get hired into these type of roles and end up leaving very quickly. I'll refer everyone to that piece, and that's all I have to say on the matter.
That is a good one. Actually, you're right. I totally forgot about that.
He predicts this exact story that's been going on forever.
Yeah. Brand people have no business in performance marketing. Absolutely none. Sorry.
I sadly agree with that. You have to be a unicorn. You have to respect both brand and performance, where they fit in the life cycle of a product, and how you can speak to your CFO and understand your numbers and manage a business and deliver short and long-term results.
Yeah, I have this huge rant brewing on Star Wars Hunters that.
Oh, we're getting there too.
Oh,
Don't
all
worry,
right, all right.
it's in
Oh
this
my
week.
God, this guy on LinkedIn, I swear,
So
he was the smartest dumb person I've ever met or talked to on LinkedIn. That guy was clearly knew what he was talking about, but he was so fucking wrong. It was like unbelievable. The idea that you can build something like Star Wars Hunters into like a sustainable long-term business, with like a cosmetic economy is just a ridiculous assumption. That is what they clearly were designing the game based upon, was the idea. Anyway, whatever. That's the whole other thing. All right. Mike Delotte's leaving Mattel Digital after 2 years. He was there for 2 years at least, right? So Mike Delotte's a good friend of mine, and we worked together at Kabam, and I do really like him. The guy is like a machine. He is a BD machine. Like he knows everybody. So I actually don't know what the story is, and I'm sure I get the actual story when the time comes. But Mattel was trying to build their own first party as well as third party type game division, and maybe it just didn't go as well or go as fast as they had hoped. I have no idea what's going on over Mattel.
I think I mentioned at the time, I've worked at these companies as a toy person, Mattel, Hasbro, and Disney in the toy industry. And when they announced this publishing group, I was like, as much as I applaud the effort, it is almost impossible to set up that kind of a relationship, especially at Mattel, which is so far behind what Hasbro is doing. And by the way, Spin Master. So Spin Master, many people don't know, is a toy company. They also own Toka World and Bakugan and a number of other big brands that they are doing some incredible digital stuff in the space. The Navik guys have a podcast with their digital guy right now that I've been listening to, and I just applaud what they are doing. And so I think Mike had great aspirations. Hey, we need to catch up to what these other toy companies are doing in digital. Mattel doesn't have the brands to pull this off.
Yeah.
I know they have Barbie. I know they have Hot Wheels. There's nothing else after that. And I am sorry to say that as a former employee, but it's sadly the truth. And Uno, sorry, from a games perspective. All right.
Sony is reportedly making deep cuts to its VR department. Big shocker there, right? They put that thing out to die because, frankly, I don't even understand. They didn't have many resources dedicated to the thing to begin with. I don't know, like, how they can make deep cuts to something so shallow, right? But PSVR 2 is dead, 100%. It is DED dead, okay? And the rest of the VR market seems to be on life support yet again. And so here we are, like, Facebook can't carry this thing on its shoulders alone. Midnight Society cuts ties with Dr. Disrespect following fresh Twitch ban allocations from 2020. I don't know what's going on. I mean, like, allegedly he was messaging minors and the Twitch employees could see it and they were sexual in nature and there was some leak about it and they were attempting to meet at TwitchCon. I don't know. This is a little bit gross. I don't know why we're covering something like this. It's like, who gives a fuck?
It in.
This was huge forever. This was huge news when I was at Amazon. I tried to find this out too.
It was 4 years ago.
Oh, it's just been this big mystery. This is like JFK stuff for gamers.
All right.
Like release the files.
Epstein shit? Okay.
Okay. Xbox Studios boss Booty says that management change was behind the Tango closure, right? The Tango guys were the ones that did
Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush, right? That was the beloved studio that they shit canned for seemingly no good reason at all. And basically they said the founder, Shinji Mikami, left the company in 2023 was one of the reasons that they did this. But again, this doesn't change the fact that you make leadership happy when you do these type of transactions, right? Like this is the whole point of buying creatives is to keep creatives, right? So it's like, yeah, like, okay, that's not a good reason, right? That you fucked up because you couldn't keep hold of them, like, or whatever, or didn't have the resources internally or in the company to actually backfill him. So that's not a good reason. It's a better reason than what they've been saying before. I'll give them that, right? At least they're like acknowledging the fact that they fucked up to some degree, but they're not. So whatever. All right, Phil, let's do this. Lots of games going on right now.
So many games. So we've been following Dungeon Fighter, and they finally had a mobile SKU, which was rumored forever. This is based on the insanely popular HD franchise, which has made billions upon billions in the East. It has made $270 million during its first month in China. $270 million. which reports that the RPG that's twice as much as the second performing game, Honor of Kings, which we've covered forever, which is going its own global expansion right now, and it does not include Google revenue. So wow, we have estimates from Nico Partners that the game could make between 2.1 and 2.5 billion dollars in 2024. Wow.
I think those estimates are actually low.
Low, yeah.
Yeah,
Based
if you think
on,
about it.
Whoa.
So historically, Honor of Kings used to do 1 to 2 billion a month, all in, and obviously, Sensor
A
Tower.
month?
Yeah, like these games are so much bigger than what we see in the data because it's China, right? Like you don't see Google, you don't see the Android numbers, and Android is the dominant platform in those countries. So this number is very small.
So EA's what, at like 7 billion a year in annual revenue? So you're saying this one game is comparable to the entire
Yeah, used to do that. Yeah. Now
I think,
it's
yeah, and
slid a bit.
we still haven't seen an official number from either Tencent or Nexon. So I've been very bullish on Nexon. And the Nexon stock has not even moved on this announcement, which is crazy.
just built-in share price already,
It's
though.
not,
I'm sure everyone
though.
expected
It's not.
that.
That's what it's not. It's not. So anyway, I think we will see the results from the reporting next quarter, and we'll see what happens with Nexon.
New game announcement by another former Riot spinoff team. It's been in development for a long time. I was a part of some early playtests. It has been officially titled Supervive, and this is from one of the leaders of the League of Legends team. I don't know, Jen, if you have more information here. From what I understand, he took a ton of that leadership team to form this company. It is a battle royale MOBA. This is another attempt, I guess, at the MOBA market. This team is definitely, I want to say this team is very different than Odyssey Interactive, if I'm remembering correctly, which were the developers of Omega Strikers, which was another Riot spinoff. This is a very different team in terms of seniority, from my understanding.
Oh, definitely. So this was Project Loki, was what it was called. Theorycraft, I believe, is the name of the company. So now they're calling it Supervive. Huh, interesting. Yeah. So
That's
Joe,
the name of the game.
no, the name of the game. Yeah. So Theorycraft is I think is the name of the company. Joe Tung led League of Legends for years. He's one of the most experienced game guys. I think he actually was EP on a bunch of Halo titles back in the day. He's a beloved game dev leader, and he's very game dev. He took a lot, if not all of the senior leadership of the League of Legends team over with him. A lot of the marketing people have gone with him. It's a very, very experienced team. If anyone can figure this out, it will be this team. I know, Crush, you shit on MOBAs, but if anyone
Why?
can figure out what the next MOBA is, it's going to be this team.
Make it stop. Please make it stop.
This is a different thesis, though. This is a different thesis. This is at least Battle Royale. I mean, I don't think the outcome's any different, but
What was the name of the game in soft launch?
Project Loki.
That's what it was actually called?
That was their working title. Yeah. There's some playtests out that look really nice. Like the art style is nice. However, your point about you need scale in order to make a cosmetic-driven business work is still true. And if anyone can get scale on a new game, it is going to be this team. Is
going to be
my
Riot.
point.
It's gonna be Blizzard. It's gonna be anybody but a new company.
Haven't they raised like over 120 million? I don't know. I don't
It just
remember.
makes the fail that much bigger.
Oh,
You know.
well,
All right, moving on.
So we have some extremely exciting news. There is going to be a localization of the hit game Uma Musume Pretty Derby. This is the girl horse racing game that just like does gangbusters in the East. And I have on the screen right now monthly active users against revenue. It has always produced a vast quantity of revenue. It's doing around 45, even 50 million at some point in terms of monthly revenue. It has been an absolute gangbuster game. It also has like K-pop elements, like the girls also dance and they sing. I definitely am going to be playing this for sure. I don't know, Eric, if you have different ideas of this game's prospects. I mean, we didn't see good localization, by the way. This is not going to be localized by Crunchyroll. It's going to be by Side Games, the developer itself, which I thought was interesting. I'm pretty sad about that. We'll see what they can do in terms of localization.
I would only speculate that this type of game is not going to resonate with the Western audience. I would imagine they're going to get a few million people that are going to spend insane amounts of money, but it's not going to scale. That would be my guess.
Next week, let's pull Goddess of Victory. I'd love to see how that's doing in the United States. Monopoly Go update. So they had a recent live ops event, which was interesting. It got a lot of press. They did some original video for it. So I wanted to check out where they were in terms of weekly active users and revenue. And they've been on this little bit of a decline we've been talking about since January. Meanwhile, weekly active users is pretty healthy. It's been largely stable over this period. So I still think they are stacking customers, but downloads are also down. So I think a lot of this game's velocity has started to shrink. This isn't a great trend line in the slightest. I'd love to see this reversed. So right now it's looking like a $500 million a year game based on this sort of run rate. I'm sure Scopely would love this thing to be a much bigger beast. So that's 1.5 billion. Okay. Congrats to Scopely. But I mean, look at still a downward sloping trend line.
Yeah,
Still
but
a
then again,
downward
they
sloping trend
can't
line.
estimate number one titles well. I think they're probably basing it upon some like retention curve or something. I don't know how they do number ones because they're not getting the data from Scopely. So until Scopely announces numbers, we really don't know what they are. But I would imagine that this might be close. I mean, they can't possibly be getting incrementally better users, right, at this stage, given how the scope of this game. So I think they're fine. How about that?
Yeah, I think they're doing the right thing though, right? Like wasn't it a racing event that they're doing live ops events, they're doing updates. You're going to see some fall off. You can't stay at this level forever, and you're going to see peaks and valleys in engagement. So I'm not surprised, but it's still, if it's 1.5 billion a year, I mean, Jesus, like, congrats.
Coming in at the lower end is an update from where we are with Star Wars Hunter. So we're just looking at mobile revenue here. And as we know, Switch revenue, I'm sure towers over this.
Of course.
And the graph I chose for this is cumulative revenue because it felt like that was the great way to make an assessment of where this game is. We're about a month in, and it has generated a whopping $1 million in cumulative revenue. So I don't think this is a game that will continue to see updates based on this trend. Anything you'd like to add?
It's like, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so
I've
bad.
heard a lot of people talk nicely about the gameplay. I think the business model, like to your guys' point, it goes to show, I can't believe I'm going to say this, it goes to show how important the monetization plan is in addition to the gameplay plan.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Come on, Phil, that was like a layup for you to like
I agree
take
with these
this.
things. But like, I mean, come on, it's 2024. Like, why are we still having these same conversations? Like,
Well, wasn't this game started four
it's
years
just-
ago? I mean, isn't that the problem?
no, it's not. They started 4 years ago. Everyone knew the answer to this question. Don't make MOBAs and don't make shooters that have cosmetic economies unless it's going to scale to a size that makes sense. And even then, like you look at Warzone, right? Like it's a disaster. The Call of Duty game, the shooter, it's a beautiful game, right?
The Battle Royale one, right? Call of Duty Mobile is crushing it, but that's
how is
the
Warzone a disaster? They sell gameplay. That's what blueprints are.
No, Call of Duty Warzone isn't doing anything on mobile right now.
Oh, you're talking about the mobile SKU.
How much money do you think they spent on building that game? It's like a disaster of epic proportion. And
Wasn't
this is
that
the same
one
idea.
with, like, 12 studios too?
But my point is that at least Warzone has a huge audience and huge following. They can't even make that work, right?
Yeah.
And then you throw out a game like this, you think it's going to be successful? No. Do loot boxes, do pay to win, pay to progress. Figure out how to make a shooter with pay to win, pay to progress, right? That's what people should be working on, right? Or like a loot box system that makes sense, like not, but just creating a cosmetic economy and like battle pass, dude, that's an exercise in failure every time. This is the rant that I really wanted to talk about before. And that's why MOBAs don't work. And that's why these shooters are not working. Anyway, it's just dumb. It's just dumb.
All right. HD.
Huge update, Elden Ring DLC. It is killing it in terms of overall ranking. The game itself rose 17 places. And when we look at what it's done to the max daily concurrent players on Steam, this is courtesy of Video Game Insights. It has had a huge spike that we've only seen back when the game launched all the way in 2022, reaching a peak of around 950,000 CCU. And with this DLC update, it's about at 780,000 CCU. So it's done a lot to revive the game. I didn't realize this game had come out 2 years ago, but to still pull in numbers like that is
crazy.
extremely impressive.
Everyone's talking about it today. I feel like everyone I speak to is either going back to play Elden Ring, talking about Elden Ring. It's coming up in the news.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think has been really curious, and I've seen this strategy played out a lot more, is that there's been a lot less price discounting, which is usually how you drive new users into a game, particularly a single player game. But they've been able to maintain price for a really long period of time. So if we look at the screen right now, we're looking at the history of the price on Steam, and they've really only done about 4 to 5 discounts over 2 years, which is extremely limited. And the max discount they've done looks like to be around $30. So they maintained a $60 price. So they're moving a lot of units at a really high price. So that's a lot of money.
So thanks to Newzoo for giving us some tidbits. Every month they give us some access to their data. And so we try to share some of their insights with you here. We're trying to figure out how we can share more of their insights. We can't get to all of them. They send us a bunch. So that might go out in a newsletter, or I'll figure out how to post it. So thanks to them for this.
So one more update, and this is from Diablo, as we're going down the list of HD games. It has had an update called the Loot Reborn update, and it is absolutely killing it. It has been a monster increase in PSU. I've never seen this franchise pull numbers like this. It hasn't had a lot of a Steam history, which is usually how you get a lot of this. So they're still distributing on Blizzard's own launcher. But if you just look at where the PSU numbers have gone since this Loot Reborn update, it's absolutely killing it right now. From what I understand, they've simplified a lot of the systems. They've added a lot of important crafting systems. They've added a lot of endgame crafting systems. The only suspicion I have here is whether or not this has affected trade at all. Because as we know, there's a large relationship between having tradability and being able to push content like this. You can see an increase in bots usually. So if you go on like Lost Ark's PSU charts for Steam, you can actually see ban waves. You can see drops in PSU. This always happens when you have bots. But by and large, you take it at face value. They've had a massive increase in PSU. It's the highest it's ever been since it's been on the Steam platform way back in November of 2023. And they have DLC coming out very soon, the Vessel, I believe, of Hatred. So this could be a great 1-2 punch for them. The timing couldn't be better.
Step into the future of game monetization with Xsolla, the premier partner for game developers seeking to expand their reach and revenue. Xsolla provides a robust suite of tools designed to enhance user acquisition, manage subscriptions, and streamline payment solutions worldwide. Unlock new markets and maximize profitability through their customized, secure payment architecture and dedicated support team. Xsolla, powering game developers to achieve global success.
This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they'll interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance. All right, Laura, can you report on Nintendo Direct? Go a little deeper for us. Can you do this in Japanese, though, please?
I only took about 6 months of Japanese. I loved it, but it was interesting language. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent. I would love to, I cannot. But I know you covered this last week, so I'm not going to dig too deep into what was already covered, but just a few angles. And as we mentioned at the beginning, I thought it would be the same across the US Nintendo Direct as the Japanese one. I think that was silly. They actually were a bit different. They had more game announcements in the Japanese one. It was just different games. So there were certain things that were added. One thing that Phil was going to cover that I was like, please, Phil, let me do it. I was really excited to see Eggy Party announced in the Japanese Nintendo Direct. It was not mentioned in the US one yet, but maybe it will be coming in the future. But I think that's a great port. All right. So overall, there were 31 announcements. They have 16 new games, 7 remakes, 8 updates / expansions, and thankfully 0 ads. That was really nice after watching Summer Game Fest. And just for the comparison, the Japanese Nintendo Direct had about 45 announcements. I would divide it into 5 categories. So first category of all these announcements, Nintendo's finest. This is like Mario, Link, and Friends. 2 would be, how many variations of Animal Crossing can you make?
As
3 would
many
be
as possible, because my
as
wife
many as
will buy all
possible.
of them.
Yes. What's interesting, though, is despite all these announcements, the actual team from Animal Crossing, New Horizons, that group that focuses on that franchise, did not actually, they don't have anything that they wanted to show that was upcoming. At least maybe we'll be surprised, but there was nothing new from that team. And I think Animal Crossing came out in 2020, so it's been almost 4 years. Then we have third category, JRPGs, no surprise to anyone. And then 4, I actually sent this to Adam to have a look because he grills me or gives me a hard time when I talk about Nintendo, tells me I fan out too much. But I joked with him. I said, yeah, I think Nintendo's listening to TWiG because they're leaning into online multiplayer as a theme for their games going forward. And Adam was like, they definitely don't listen to you. I was like, Adam, it was a joke. But we've criticized them previously for not having, well, a couple of things. Their games usually don't have online multiplayer, and they have a super clunky lobby matchmaking, friending system. I mean, I think they're working on the first. I didn't see anything that suggests that they're going to be fixing kind of how you find friends. Maybe they'll be looking at it for Switch 2. Don't know. But just as a reminder, it's coming out Switch 2, 2025. And all these games will be backwards compatible. Then I have like 5, like the last category of all these announcements was just kind of like, I didn't know how to group them. It was just like a larger other category. One other call out, no announcements from Animal Crossing team and no announcements from Mario Kart. So that was I was a little surprised to see because it's a pretty good franchise for them. And they don't have anything in the works that they announced in either direct. Since Jen, you covered this last week, you talked about the new Zelda game and how they're doing.
The copy paste feature that is because women aren't allowed to have swords, you have to let them copy and paste.
It is a very cool feature, but following kind of on the tails of Princess Peach Showtime, I felt like I just didn't understand why we couldn't keep the action in the game that's known for in the Zelda games when Zelda's actually the main character. Let's see. I had a note. It sounds interesting on paper. I'm worried it might narrow their audience too much because it takes it away as an action game and puts it more into a puzzler. And I think you also covered Lego Horizons. It looks awesome. It looks very cool. It's whether or not the performance on Switch can handle a game like that. But let's see, because PS5 looks pretty smooth.
Yeah, the audience feels a little bit of a mismatch, but maybe that's why they're doing it. Sony's trying to grow the audience. I think the thing to point out too is the trend that we're seeing from the Sonys and the Microsofts with their first-party titles extending into other platforms. I actually like this a lot. I like franchises being available on multiple platforms. I think players appreciate that. For me as a marketer was the interesting point on Lego Horizons.
That would be my takeaway too. And I think that's a trend coming from Nintendo because one thing they're also launching on doing more cross-platform is I think this is one of the strongest highlights I took away from this is they're putting Hello Kitty Island Adventure on Switch. And frankly, I think it should have been on Switch from the beginning. I mean, most people listening probably don't play this, but this is one of the Animal Crossing inspired games with puzzles and more of a quest system. So it's taking kind of that open worlds that you're exploring, crafting, whatever, and then giving it a little bit more structure. I think it'll do really well.
Yeah, it crushed it on Apple Arcade. Like literally, I mean, no shit on that, like no shade.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised to see the developer take that to a different platform.
And then the last one, there was one I wanted to bring up because I thought of Phil when I saw this. It's called Farmagia. Apologies for pronunciation, but it's a game that looks like Pokemon meets Squad Busters in a turn-based RPG. And all I could think of when I saw the demo was it just needs the Supercell chicken. And then then it would be perfect. But the interesting mechanic in it that I think Supercell should have a look at is you're collecting these monsters. You have this like squad and they're attacking with you. You can actually morph them into like one big monster. And I was like, why doesn't Squad Busters have that?
Interesting.
Phil, you look kind of horrified.
I'm curious, morbidly curious of what that would look like. It is a design solution to something. I don't know. That's interesting.
And then there are a couple things that were announced that I just don't get. First thing I thought when I saw this one announcement was Cress is right. They have a Tales of the Shire. It's basically like Lord of the Rings meets Animal Crossing sim game. And all I could think of was, who would want this?
What's the third-party market tool everyone uses? Like, you spend a lot of time in that tool looking at audience crossover. I could see how you come up with something like this.
It's Solston.
Yeah, Solston.
Our friends at Solston, who
Sound
are
like
friends of the pod. Doesn't Embracer own Lord of the Rings? I went on the rant the other week where people should, because I was like, has there been a successful Lord of the Rings game recently? And then everyone's like, what about that game from 20, 30 years ago? I think they're trying to shill their Lord of the Rings franchise to people. There's nothing going on in the franchise. So that's the other weird thing. And then what's the overlap of Lord of the Rings and people who like cozy games? There are 5 people who are the potential audience for this game. Maybe Laura is one.
No.
My wife is not, right? Because what people don't realize is that people who engage in the cozy game experience or these lighter experiences tend to not be hardcore, like mid-core
Lord of the Rings
fans of those
fans.
kinds of those IP.
Yeah.
And that's why it's Animal Crossing. So I hope they did research on this. You can do tremendous player and consumer insights when you have these ideas to understand and evaluate your concept evaluation, do audience segmentation, do audience identification. It's kind of what I do with Beta Hat. We do this all day long with companies all around the world on new IP and help them figure out if they have a market fit or not. I would have loved to have had my hands on this, to be honest with you.
So interesting context. This is from Weta Workshop. So it's not from a traditional development studio or one that doesn't have a lot of lineage. It probably was creative driven. And it also will be coming to Netflix games. So buckle in and get that subscription, Raren.
Oh, I wonder if there's a show.
The only comment I have about this whole thing, honestly, is that this is a really surprising showcase, honestly, for Nintendo, because we are on the tail end of the Switch. The Switch 2 is definitely coming out next year. I've heard from numerous sources. So this is like the last gasp, last hurrah for the Switch. And I thought they did a great job of delivering some amazing content in the tail end of a platform. And then the big franchises like Mario Kart and 3D Mario, and they obviously said that, Metroid, will be part of the launch titles for the Switch 2. That's when like the real stuff happens. So they're actually doing a good job of servicing the customers that they have for the Switch in the last year of its cycle. So
Yeah. The only thing I do want to mention, going back to the online, is there's one announcement they had that was relatively small, but I thought was super interesting, is that they're having your old Nintendo games that are going to have an online leaderboard, which I've never seen before. Maybe one of you have seen this, but it honestly felt like they were looking at what content works for retro games like Mario on TikTok, figuring out how can they create more viral social content, and 2, how can they start thinking of how to recreate an arcade feel in modern day today. Maybe I'll be wrong, but if I was thinking about why they would start pushing this, and I feel like they have to have some sort of long-term strategy around how they can take what works for them in the past to see how can they redefine the future of social retro arcade feeling when everyone is kind of at home alone or just by themselves.
Cool. All right, let's jump to our final topic with Phil on Fortnite.
Epic has announced that the Epic Game Store is coming to Japan's iOS store in 2025. So it's not just Fortnite that's coming. It's also going to be wrapped in an Epic store that will sit on mobile. And I think this is an interesting time to revisit what mobile meant to Epic and how they kind of screwed the pooch when it came to iOS and Android, because the game was fairly adaptable to both of those platforms early on. And I saw a lot of comments that like, Tim might just be a shrewd businessman. He really knows what he's doing here by picking this fight. But when you look at a lot of the leaked documents from the Epic v Apple trial, you start to realize that mobile wasn't just a rounding error when it came to the impact on Fortnite. It actually was a significant share. So this is the first graph we're looking at. It's daily active users in North America. It looks like this was pulled by some poor analyst in Tableau. And the third most popular platform in North America in terms of DAU is iOS. And then it is Switch, and then it is PC, and then on a distant last place is Android. Now, to be fair, iOS is also a distant third. Both PlayStation and Xbox dominate this game, but it certainly was not a rounding error being the third most popular platform. So they lost, it looks like, and again, this is from 2018 to 2019, so we're not looking at a lot of recent data here, but they lost probably around 2 million DAU from not having this game available just in North America. We look at Europe, the picture's a little bit different. iOS isn't quite as popular. PC starts to become more popular. But still, when you combine iOS and you combine what they ended up doing for Android distribution, it still is a decent portion of the game's DAU. So like Tim actually made some real sacrifices by not distributing this game. And the other thing that's interesting is that there was some more leaked documents suggesting that iOS is really good at bringing people into the franchise. And I saw a lot of people going to other platforms, but using iOS to download and kind of get into Fortnite. Now I'm a little skeptical about some of those claims, but clearly I think it gets some level of attribution for bringing people into the platform. So they needed to get this game back on track, and it's not in a good place. I think that's the thing I want to make clear here is it's actually a shit show right now in terms of PSU. We started to get public data when they did Fortnite Creative, and so we can measure peak CCU like we do on Steam. And you look at the most recent returns for the game, it had its lowest PSU since October 2023. This game is not growing, and it needs to grow. For Fortnite to win, it needs to grow, and the reason it is not growing is because they do not have monetization in the platform. You cannot align incentives when people are being paid timeshare, because timeshare is correlated with the sales of cosmetics, but the correlation isn't as weak versus something that's more direct. Like, for example, ads. We were talking about turnstile monetization with Be Real. You go on Instagram, you're going to get a certain amount of revenue you will generate for Instagram every hour because you're going to view a certain amount of ads. When you play Candy Crush, you're going to lose a certain amount of levels. They don't have the same turnstile that's set up here. And when you think about Roblox, they're able to provide hard currency sales with inside each of the individual playgrounds, and you cannot do that in Fortnite right now. There are a lot of reasons you can't do that right now, but until they set up that feature, this game is not going to be able to grow because you're not going to be able to align creative incentives with Epic's own incentives. It's not all good in Cary, North Carolina right now.
What was interesting on that European chart, and listen, I know from, being in the game industry forever that Xbox is not a big deal in Europe, but to see PC above Xbox on DAU for Fortnite during that time frame was a little bit astounding. I didn't realize it was that bad. Which, again, if you're Xbox, which had an amazing showcase, right? Kudos for them for getting so much good press coming out of their showcase from a couple weeks ago. They have a lot of work to do in Europe. Oh my God. I don't know if they can ever catch up.
Oh no, they're doomed in Europe.
Eric, do you care to join us with your crocheting?
I know.
Sorry. I got all these gifts from my sister, and so I'm like looking through all this like tchotchke stuff. Sorry about that.
Well, we'll let you get to your birthday. We finished, but do you want to chime in on Xbox's demise and inability to come back? Is that what you wanted to?
They're screwed, but we'll see.
Yeah, it was interesting to see a chart.
But I'm going to disagree on
That's an interesting chart.
I'm going to disagree on the Fortnite thing for a little quickly. I think they are still doing reasonably well. Actually, I agree with what you're saying, though, in terms of like in order to grow the franchise, they need to expand beyond Fortnite, and the way it's set up is not going to do that, particularly on a revenue basis. If they're just doing cosmetic economies and just doing the share of engagement, so
But
I think they have a lot of work to do.
They haven't reoriented themselves as a platform, despite all, Tim being asked on Twitter so often, like, hey, is Fortnite a game or is it a platform? And he keeps saying, like, ask that question a year. And this is supposed to be their big shift, is that they're going to start thinking themselves as platforms. And yet I keep hearing all these brand deals. I keep hearing about Lego. We keep hearing about racing.
Yeah.
Keep hearing about like these concert things.
Disney.
We keep hearing about it just looks like stunts to me. This feels like a franchise that's supported by stunts. You need to build a platform. You need to build tools. And they have an aggressive roadmap that they publish publicly, but a lot of those features have started to slip. And again, I don't see creator-based monetization on there. You need to get that.
Yeah, they're not doing
flywheel
creator. As far as I understand, they're not doing creator-based monetization, which I think is a big mistake. But I will say that like the numbers did come out. It was like I think it was like maybe 15 or 20% of the revenues being driven by mobile at the time when it was on mobile before they did this deal. They sued Apple. And we did some research. I actually did research with Stan Kwan, as a matter of fact, back then. And it was the gateway drug. It was like the entry point for a lot of kids into the ecosystem of Fortnite and the Switch.
Yeah.
So it just creates an on-ramp that's super valuable. And so they need to be on mobile, right? I mean, that in order to grow the business and grow the market. So.
Where my kids, when Zach was 7, that's what he was playing on his iPad. He had the claw, when you play the shooters with the claw format, he would play cross-platform with his friends on console and he would kick their ass with the claw technique. Right. I don't know how he did it. And so he plays on PC now, but he tried on my Xbox and because he grew up on mobile, he didn't like the console. So now he just went from iPhone to PC. So now he's a PC gamer. So he skipped Xbox. I wonder, I should tell Xbox that, by the way. One more thing on Fortnite is I watched the Metallica. So I'm a huge Metallica fan. I'm a huge nerd. So I watched the Fortnite Metallica experience, which was 10 minutes. And I don't know. I think these musical collaborations have really lost it. I mean, I'm not a player, but as someone watching it, I'm like, that's it, really? And like this whole thing, and you get in and you do this kind of silly thing, and they butcher all the music. Like the music's all cut up, and it's like they're not really even performing. I don't know. Am I a boomer, Chris? Is that what you're thinking in your head? Jen's a boomer?
A little bit, but I don't know. I don't know anything about the Metallica event. I knew that it was going on, but I don't know what was the reception of it at all. Well, the fact that I haven't heard anything probably is an indication that maybe it wasn't as successful compared to the one they've done in the past. But
It's
you're
just
a
hype
boomer.
juice. They're drunk on hype juice. It's just there's always just these highs, these brand highs.
I think they're trying to find their feet on how to define what a platform is. Like they're doing all this experimentation. I think, what was it, the Marshmallow concert? I can't remember. There was one rapper concert that did super well, but I didn't hear anything about the Metallica one.
Yeah, only boomers like me like Metallica. All right. Actually, they had a resurgence with Master of Puppets in Stranger Things, and that's how the next generation has discovered them. And so their longest segment, obviously, was Master of Puppets in the thing. Okay. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We will see
boomer.
you all next week.
Tom, play us out with some Metallica.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun,
Eric, you can go
dun.
open your birthday presents now.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. More importantly, are you a member of the Deconstructor of Fun Slack group? If you have 5 years or more of games industry experience, go to deconstructoroffun.com/Slack and apply to join. Join the games industry's best professional community filled with peers always willing to lend a hand. Or subscribe to our newsletter to get all the latest insights from the Deconstructor of Fun content creators. Thanks for listening.